Okay, so Ahsoka, which episode number is this? 5, 6, 5. So this is my Ahsoka episode 5 review. What did I just watch? Now, granted, I did enjoy it, but what happened with Ahsoka? And I've watched a couple of reviews, and both have differing explanations. So, one is closer to what I think happened, and one is very heavy on Clone Wars and Rebels lore. So anyway, we start off with the camera panning over the area where Ahsoka dies and where Balin and Shin leave with Sabine, and the area where the map was. Now, which, by the way, all I could think of when Ahsoka was being burned by the map was that creepy Nazi in Indiana Jones who had the one half of the map burned into his palm. So I thought that was gonna happen with Ahsoka, but I guess that they decided that would be too silly or already done, and they didn't want to make it too similar, too much the same as that. So that didn't happen because they have another way of tracking where everybody went. But anyway, so we see Hera land on Cetos, and she has her gun drawn, and apparently, I don't know, maybe it's just this area of the planet, but except for Balin, Shin, Morgan Elsbeth, and then Ahsoka and Sabine, you see nobody. Well, the droids as well, but other than that, you don't see anybody. But anyway, so Hera figures that, okay, the party's over, and she even mentions that to Chopper and Jason. So Jason wants to explore the island, and I'm just screaming, no, he's a child. I mean, obviously he has some force sensitivity, but I'm not aware of how strong it is. Like, again, I mentioned that Grogu is a baby, and I would feel comfortable with him wandering around by himself because of how freaking strong he is. But Jason might be strong in the Force, but he's not a member of Yoda's race, nor has he been in any ways trained, it sounds like. So I'm going to say still no. But his mother's like, yeah, just stick around with Chopper. Stick close to Chopper. And we already seen Chopper is a badass, So then she hears something, and she motions for Jason to go back, to which he hides behind Chopper, which I just found adorably funny. I just found that amusing. And like I said, adorable. Especially when Jason pops his head up behind Chopper. I just thought it was so cute. So Hera walks towards the noise, and it turns out it's Hyung. I'm sorry, He Yang. What is wrong with me and that name? I have no idea. So, she asks him what's going on, and he just keeps saying, "Oh, I told them to stick together, but they don't listen. They never listen." He was totally acting and holding Sabine's helmet. He was totally acting like he expected that they were both dead, which broke my heart. But at the same time, have you met Ahsoka and Sabine? I only know of them through this series. Well, I also know Ahsoka through The Mandalorian, but still. These are not women who die easy. You might think you killed them, but they don't die easy. So anyway, so Jason notices something, and I don't know if he saw something. Well, he didn't see something visibly. He saw it through the Force. So Jason is just sitting there with Chopper, staring out ahead, and he's sensing something. And Hera is talking with Carson. And Carson's like, yeah, Senator Organa, which I assume is Leia. I mean, technically her father was also a senator, but given the time period, I'm going to say it's Leia. She has been covering, but that's about to end. She can only cover so much. And so he's mentioning that, we've got a party coming, we've got to, figure out what to do. And so Carson is telling her this, and at first she stops Jason from talking to her, but then she listened to him because he's like, no, seriously, I'm hearing something. And obviously she knows about his Force sensitivity, so she goes to find out what it is. He's like, can't you hear it? Which is so adorably childlike. He is so strong in the Force that he just assumes anybody else can sense it. Now, this goes back to what Ahsoka told Sabine, that the Force resides in everyone, just only certain people can tap into it. And unless you're a member of Yoda's race, in which case you just are born being able to tap into it, because they're just ridiculously powerful. So Hera's listening. All she hears is the waves. She listens harder, especially once Jason told her what to listen for, which is lightsabers. Now, in the world between worlds, which, is it still a foregone conclusion that that's where they were, and not just Ahsoka dreaming that she was in the world between worlds? But anyway, she is fighting Anakin, and the reason is he wants to complete her training. And now at first we don't know whether he's aware of his what part of the timeline he's from, because he mentions how old Ahsoka got. But he's also aware that she horribly lost to Baylan. Because he even asked her what happened. She's like, I was fighting Baylan's skull. And he's like, nah, you lost. You definitely lost that one. So, I'm going to say that this is future Anakin after he died, because why else would he be there and knowing about Balin? So either that is that, or again, it's a part of her dream. And since Jedi, force sensitive people, can attune themselves to the minds of other people, it could still be either or. My understanding of the world between worlds is it's kind of its own dimension. So either way, he'd have to tune himself to her mind. But anyway, he's hearing the lightsabers. And at first she didn't want to fight him. And he's like, yeah, I heard that before. Which of course is a callback to Luke. Luke didn't want to fight his father. And he didn't really give him much choice. Like he didn't give Ahsoka any choice. So obviously this is post Vader. And I say post because he was redeemed in the end. I mean, I hope that if you're watching this, you've seen at least the original trilogy. He was redeemed in the end because he actually saved Luke from the Emperor. So that's why I say post Vader. Because post death. And so they're fighting, and then he basically kills Ahsoka. And I say that in quotes because he destroyed the bridge that she was on. She just kept falling. And she falls into a memory. And this memory is of their first mission in the Clone Wars. And and this time it's a young Ahsoka. It's no longer Rosario Dawson. It's a young Ahsoka. And they're just having a discussion in the middle of a frickin' war. So then we have the Clone Wars. We see her crying over the deaths, symbolically crying over the deaths of the clones. And Anakin is telling her that, if there's a war, the Jedi need to lead. Obviously they once were about peace, but we're in a war. So if it went in a war, you kind of have to fight the damn war. You have to be a warrior. And the first thing I noticed, because again, I only watched the first episode 1 of the prequels, never watched Hayden Christensen, saw a bit of a flashback in Obi-Wan, and I'm in love with this man's voice. I really am. I love his voice. So, anyway, they go from that battle to a different one, which, if we were concerned whether Ahsoka knew that this was not Clone War Anakin, you realize that he wasn't, because she said, "Oh yeah, you were Darth Vader at this point." And it was, like I said, so weird that she would interlay Vader with Anakin whenever she saw him walking away or walking towards her. And she mentioned, "Oh yeah, this is the Siege of Mandalore." And I know that I can only think of her last name. Bo-Katan Kryze. Oh my lord. She was there at the Siege of Mandalore, so I was kind of disappointed that she didn't make a cameo. Even if they couldn't get Katie Sackhoff, just to show someone in the Mandalorian armor. But no, we did get a cameo from Commander Rex. So we did hear Tamura Morrison. Didn't see him because he was in the Stormtrooper uniform. So whether he was actually in that or he was just voicing Commander Rex, but we did get an Easter egg for him. And so Ahsoka is basically working out some stuff. This whole episode was about Anakin helping her work through some stuff. About how he has the legacy of death and destruction, and by extension, so does she. And he's like, really? You're still hung up on that? So, and that's when I heard him say about. And I'm just like, ooh, that sounds very northern Wisconsin. Let me see where he's from. Canada. Okay, that checks out. So I'm always happy when actors are allowed to use their natural accents. I am always happy about that because unless it's a role that 100% needs to be a certain accent, I see no problem with, especially since this is fantasy. So, as this is all happening, Hera, Jason, and Chopper are trying to find Ahsoka. So Chopper and Jason figured that they have to not just look over the ocean, but get as close to the ocean as possible. And Hu Yang and Hera are flying in the Ghost. The rest of the X-Wing fighters are on their own. And Jason and Chopper are left on the shore. Which again, I'm like, why? Why? But apparently he was their homing beacon. That's why. That instead of putting him in the Ghost and possibly losing that connection, he and Chopper would be able to find them. And since it's Chopper who gave them coordinates, obviously this is something that maybe she was having a very vivid, acting like it was a vivid dream, and so even Chopper was attuned to her movements. But Ahsoka and Anakin basically is egging her on to kill him. She disarms him, but she doesn't kill him. She says she wants to live. And that at that moment you see her, Anakin disappears, and you see her, the world between worlds disappears, and you see her lying in the ocean. At least she's floating. So, and the X-Wing fighters pick her up, and they put her in the Ghost, and you see her recovering in, I guess, one of her old bunks. And you see Jason is excited. He can sense that Ahsoka is there. But no sign of Sabine. So she comes to, and this time she's wearing white robes, so she's now Ahsoka the White. I guess she was reborn. And one of the reviews suggested that she quite literally died. And Anakin pushed her back into her body, and that he's one reviewer suggested he's just a supremely powerful Force ghost. Another reviewer suggested he's basically a Mortis god. Hopefully at some point we'll get an answer, because Jason even asked her, that he heard a lightsaber battle. Who were you fighting? And you could see in her eyes that she's like, oh boy, how do I explain this one to the kid? And even when Hera asked Hu Yang about Anakin, I mean, she's familiar with the name Anakin Skywalker, and that was Ahsoka's master. But, like Baylan Skoll said, few knew what he would become. So, obviously, Hera has no idea that Anakin Skywalker became Darth Vader. And so, all he said was intense, which is one way to explain Darth Vader. And so Hera wants to send Jason into Ahsoka's ship, and he's like, I've seen starfighters. What's so special about this one? A Jedi starfighter? She knows how to get him. She got Jason. He was like, yes, I want to see this. And Hu Yang tells him about the training area. Can you train me? No. God, he's so unemotional. It's like, come on. At least tell the kid that eventually someone will be available to train you, but not me. Instead, just no. Or what? There was another thing he asked, and the answer was, do you know how to build lightsabers? Well, considering that is literally his job, yeah. Will you teach me how to fight with one? No. I mean, this kid is obviously much more talented than Sabine, and he's not even giving him anything. I mean, he's familiar with his father. He's familiar with being Force sensitive. He obviously was the homing beacon. Hu Yang knows this. I mean, come on. Show some, help this kid out a little here. But he was going to show him around, and now, I thought at first Hera would know that she was fighting Anakin, and that's why they sent Jason off. But no, she asked about Sabine. Well, they have the map, but it's broken, so they can no longer use it to follow. So, she takes it to try to figure out if Sabine was holding it, she might be able to do basically CSI Jedi and figure out what happened to Sabine. And it turns out she willingly went with Baylan because she wants to be reunited with Ezra. And then it's about, okay, now what do we do? How do we figure out? And then Carson again comes and it's like, yeah, we got a problem. And this time they've sent ships. And they send ships, and how do we, they basically want you to come back with them. Okay? So, while she's doing that, Ahsoka's doing her thing, and she sees Purgles. So, she figures out that is her clue. They're going to follow the Purgles. So, Hera in the Ghost with Jason, plus Hu Yang and Ahsoka in her ship, I don't know, does her ship have a name? They decide to fly into this pod of Purgles, and all the X-Fighters are gonna, especially Carson, is going to try to delay these ships because they don't want those ships to scare the pod. And so Ahsoka is just watching this, and Jason's like, I heard stories about this, about Ezra using this to take the bad guys away, along with Ezra. And he's familiar with how his father sacrificed himself. So you're seeing all these whales just fly by. And Ahsoka's just waiting. And I thought she was just going to talk to one, to ask them, can we follow you? Or somehow attach the ship to one of the Purgles and that they would go with them. Not what ended up happening with even the Hayang. Hayang was like, you're doing what now? So the Purgle opens his mouth to let them in, and I'm just like, can't there be a safer way to do this? I mean, you're in a mouth of a Purgle. What if they need to swallow? Do they need to swallow often? How can you be assured that you're not going to end up in its stomach? So anyway, Carson is trying to delay everybody, and he's like, who is this? You aren't authorized to be here. What are you doing here? Who are you? Which was hilarious. And finally he's like, okay, you're not going to believe me, but here's the story. And he mentions how Ahsoka is going to use the Purgles to find where Sabine went and the rest of the bad guys. And you could see that she's totally not buying it. She's like, yeah, I don't believe you. You're right. And then Hera comes on the comms like, yeah, you might want to move so the Purgles can get through. Because, being as big as they are, they probably are like, oh, there's an obstacle in our way. Well, we're just going to bull right through. So they go through the obstacle, and Hera even warns Ahsoka that they're about to go into hyperspace. And basically she suggests, Ahsoka's like, I'm sorry you can't come with us. And she's like, Jason's too young to go to another galaxy. And I'm sure Jason's like, no, I'm not. I'm sure that's what he was thinking. It's like, no, I want to go. But anyway, she ends with, may the Force be with you. And the last thing we see are the Purgles going into hyperspace. And so obviously next week we're going to get them at this other galaxy, and hopefully we'll see Baylan, Shin, Morgan Elsbeth, Ezra, and Thrawn. Because that's the whole point. Now the question is, how often do the Purgles migrate? Because, okay, they migrated. You were able to get to where they are, hopefully at least, where they are through the migration, but how do you get back? I mean, unless they have the coordinates of where they came from. I assume that that's it. That's the thing, because how are they going to get back? I heard rumors that not everybody is going to go back, and I hope one of those who's stranded is Balin, because again, it would be too painful if Balin survives after the fact that Ray Stevens passed away. So it would just be so much easier than, having to recast him. That is such a iffy proposition, especially if you really like someone in a role. It's just so iffy. So anyway, that's how it ended. And, yeah, the commander who's watching these Purgles was like, oh, okay, these things exist. And of course, she's in awe of the whales, because who wouldn't be? But anyway, now the question is, are they going to split it? Is there going to be a Hera being tried for completely going off on her own, and half is going to be in this other galaxy? Are they just is next episode or the rest of the season just gonna concentrate on what Ahsoka is doing, and we won't find out about Hera till they get back? Are we going to see Leia? Because they did mention her. They did name drop her. So yeah, so many questions as to what's going to happen in the next episodes. But let's see if there's anything else. Well, obviously, at least one of the X-Fighters, the X-Wings, survived, because Commander Lander was still seen. So, which was Brendan Wayne's character. But the others weren't, so maybe he's the only one who got hit and survived. But if that's the case, then how come he's none the worse for wear? But anyway, because I thought his X-Wing was also hit. But anyway, yeah, I think now I've covered everything. I don't think I'm going to come up with anything else. So with that, I will see you guys in the next episode.